Your brain does not break down on the day you get a diagnosis. It starts pulling apart quietly 20 years earlier, in your 40s and 50s, while your memory still feels sharp and nothing seems wrong at all. And here is the part that should stop you cold. The largest review of its kind now says that close to half of all dementia may be preventable, which means a big piece of your future is being decided by what you do in this decade, not by luck and not by the name of a disease your parent had. I am Dr. Hale. I have spent 15 years in internal medicine, and I have watched two very different stories play out over and over. In one, a person waits, assumes their memory is out of their hands, and hopes for the best. In the other, a person makes a handful of small daily moves in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and walks into their 70s with a mind that still feels like their own. The gap between those two people is not magic. It is habit. And most of it is within your reach today. So in the next few minutes, I am going to give you 5 things you can start doing this week to protect your brain, each one tied to a real study you can look up yourself. And there is a 6th, a bonus one, that almost nobody connects to their brain at all, even though a major team of scientists now ranks it among the biggest risks we can actually do something about. Stay to the end for that one. It is the one that surprised even me. And number 4 on this list is the one most people get completely backwards, so watch for it. Let me start with what is actually happening in there, because once you see the machinery, the daily habits stop feeling like chores and start feeling like maintenance on something you cannot replace. In 2024, a standing group of world experts known as the Lancet Commission on Dementia published an update that made headlines. After pooling the best evidence available, they concluded that around 45% of dementia cases could in theory be prevented or delayed by addressing a set of everyday risk factors across a lifetime. Read that number again. Nearly half. Not a cure, not a promise for any single person, but a very loud signal that dementia is not simply fate handed down in your genes. A large share of the risk sits in things you touch every day. Here is how the damage builds. In the most common form of dementia, 2 things pile up in the brain over decades. The first is a sticky protein called amyloid that gathers in the spaces between brain cells, a bit like grease collecting on the inside of a pipe. The second is a protein called tau, which normally acts like the internal scaffolding that holds a brain cell in shape. In disease, that scaffolding twists and collapses, and the cell dies from the inside. This does not happen overnight. It happens silently, quietly, over 20 and 30 years, which is exactly why your 40s and 50s matter so much. The fire is already being laid long before you smell smoke. Now, 3 forces feed that fire, and all 3 are things you can push back on. The first is poor blood flow. Your brain is greedy. It takes about 1/5 of the oxygen your whole body uses, delivered through a network of tiny vessels. When those vessels stiffen and narrow, parts of the brain get short-changed, like neighborhoods at the end of the line where the water pressure drops. The second is chronic inflammation, a low, constant smolder in the body that never fully switches off and slowly damages tissue, including brain tissue. The third is high blood sugar, which acts like sandpaper on the inside of those small vessels and interferes with how brain cells use energy. Blood flow. Inflammation. Blood sugar. Hold on to those 3, because every habit I am about to give you works by calming at least one of them. There is a 4th quiet driver worth naming on its own, because it sits underneath the first 3, and it is high blood pressure. The Lancet Commission lists it among the modifiable risks for a reason. Year after year of pressure that runs too high hammers those tiny brain vessels the way water hammer wears out old pipes, and it is one of the most common things people carry through their 40s and 50s without ever feeling it. There are no symptoms until there is damage. That is what makes a simple blood pressure check one of the most brain-protective 5 minutes you can spend. If yours has been creeping up, treating it is not only about your heart, you are defending your memory at the same time. And there is one more idea you need, because it is the most hopeful one in all of brain science. It is called cognitive reserve. Think of it as your brain's savings account. Over a lifetime, learning, connection, and activity build up a cushion of extra brain wiring. When damage starts to nibble at the edges, a person with a full account can keep functioning normally for years longer, because they have spare capacity to draw on. Two people can have the same amount of physical damage in their brains, and one shows symptoms while the other does not. The difference is often what they saved up. You are still making deposits right now, every single day. Let me make this real with one person. I am going to call her Marlene, and I want to be honest that she is a composite, a blend of many patients I have cared for, not one individual. Marlene came to me at 52, worried. Her mother had developed dementia in her late 70s, and Marlene was convinced she was next, and that nothing could change it. She had already started to pull back from things, cutting out the book club, skipping walks, telling herself she was just being realistic. That belief, that it was all decided, was quietly doing more harm than her genes. Because when we looked closely, Marlene had real levers in front of her. Her blood sugar was creeping up. Her blood pressure was untreated. She had stopped moving and stopped seeing people. None of that was fixed in stone, and that is the whole point of today. So here are the 5, starting with your fork. Number 1. Feed your brain the way the research actually supports. In 2015, researchers at Rush University in Chicago published a study on an eating pattern they built specifically for the brain, called the MIND diet. It borrows from the Mediterranean and DASH diets and leans hard on a short list of foods: leafy green vegetables, spinach, and kale and collards, berries, especially blueberries and strawberries, nuts, beans, whole grains, and olive oil as the main fat. In their group, people who followed this pattern closely had a meaningfully lower rate of Alzheimer's disease than those who did not, and even moderate followers saw a benefit. Now let me be careful and honest. This was an observational study, which shows a strong link, not final proof that one food change causes the other. But the items on that list are the same ones that calm inflammation and protect blood vessels. So you are hitting 2 of our 3 fires at once. You do not need a perfect diet. Add a daily serving of leafy greens and a handful of berries, and you have started. Number 2. Walk. Not marathons. Walk. In 2011, researchers at the University of Pittsburgh and their colleagues ran a study that still amazes me. They took older adults and had one group do moderate walking a few days a week for a year. At the end, brain scans showed that the walkers had actually grown the hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped structure deep in the brain that is central to memory and one of the first regions dementia attacks. Grew it. In people who were already older, the shrinking that we treat as normal aging was not just slowed. In the walking group, it reversed a little. The engine behind this has a name, a molecule called BDNF. The easiest way to picture BDNF is as fertilizer for your brain cells. It helps them survive, connect, and grow, and exercise is one of the most reliable ways to raise it. A brisk half-hour most days is enough to turn that faucet on. Your legs are feeding your memory. And you do not have to do it all at once. If half an hour sounds like too much on a busy day, break it into 3 10-minute walks after each meal. That pattern does double duty, because a short walk after eating also blunts the blood sugar spike we are about to talk about. Park farther from the door. Take the stairs for one flight. Walk while you are on the phone instead of sitting. The brain does not care whether the movement came from a gym or from a life arranged so you move more. It only counts the minutes. What it will not forgive is a chair you never leave. because the same vessels that carry oxygen to your muscles carry it to your neurons, and a body that sits all day slowly lets that delivery network go soft. If this is already useful, do me one favor before we go further. Subscribe to Dr. Hale and leave a comment telling me how old you are right now, whether that is 44 or 68, because the ages of the people watching genuinely shape which topics I dig into next. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps this reach the next person who needs it. All right. Back to the list, because number 3 is one that most people never link to their brain at all. Number 3. Take care of your mouth. This one sounds strange until you see the evidence. In 2019, a study published in the journal Science Advances reported finding a bacterium from gum disease called Porphyromonas gingivalis inside the brains of people who had died with Alzheimer's, along with the toxic enzymes it makes. In animal studies, that same mouth bacterium was able to travel to the brain and drive up the very amyloid we talked about earlier. Think of chronic gum disease as leaving a back door propped open, a steady leak of bacteria and inflammation into a body that then has to deal with it everywhere, including up top. I want to be measured here, because scientists are still working out how much this bacterium drives the disease versus rides along with it. But the daily action costs you nothing and helps your heart too. Brush twice a day. Floss. And do not skip the dentist. Bleeding gums are not normal, and treating them may protect more than your teeth. Number 4, and this is the one I told you most people get backwards. Stay connected to other people. Here is the backwards part. When folks start worrying about their memory, the instinct is often to pull inward, to retire early from social life, to protect their energy, to do quiet puzzles alone. That feels responsible. It is the opposite of what the brain wants. That same 2024 Lancet Commission I mentioned lists social isolation as one of the modifiable risk factors for dementia, and long-running studies that have followed whole communities for decades have tied loneliness and disconnection to faster mental decline. Remember the savings account. Real conversation, disagreement, remembering names, reading a face across a table, all of it is a heavy workout for the brain, far harder than any app. Marlene, the patient I described, made one change above all others. She went back to her book club, not because it was fun, though it was, because talking to other humans is one of the most demanding things a brain can do, and demand is what keeps it strong. Do not withdraw. Lean in. Number 5. Protect your blood sugar like it is a brain issue, because it is one. Diabetes is on that Lancet list too, and the reason runs deep. In the long-running Rotterdam study out of the Netherlands, published in the journal Neurology, having type 2 diabetes was linked to roughly double the risk of dementia. Double. Picture blood sugar that stays high as a slow rust working through the fine wiring of the brain, damaging vessels and starving cells of clean energy. The good news is that this is one of the most changeable risks on the entire list. The same walk from number 2, the same greens from number 1, less of the sugary drinks and refined starch, and you are directly protecting your brain, not only your waistline. If you have not had your blood sugar checked recently, that simple test is one of the most brain-protective things in this whole video. So that is the 5. Diet, movement, your mouth, your people, your blood sugar. Now the bonus, the 6th, the one almost nobody connects to their brain. Hearing. Stay with me, because this is backed by some of the strongest recent evidence we have. Untreated hearing loss in midlife is ranked by that Lancet Commission as one of the single largest modifiable risk factors for dementia. Why would hearing touch memory? 2 reasons. When sound comes in muddy, your brain has to burn extra effort just to decode it. Effort stolen from memory and thinking, like a computer running so hot on one task that everything else slows down. And when hearing fades, people quietly stop joining conversations, which pulls them straight into the isolation we just covered. In 2023, a trial called Achieve, led by researchers at Johns Hopkins and published in the Lancet, tested this directly by giving hearing aids to older adults. In the group that was already at higher risk for mental decline, the hearing treatment slowed that decline by nearly half over 3 years. I have to be straight with you, because honesty is the whole point of this channel. In the overall study, across everyone, the benefit did not reach that mark. The strong result was in the higher risk group. But the message is clear enough to act on. If your hearing is slipping, do not tough it out for years out of pride. Get it checked. It may be protecting far more than your ears. Now let me clear away some myths, because bad ideas waste the years you have. Crossword puzzles alone will not save your brain. They make you better at crosswords. Real reserve is built by learning genuinely new and social things: a language, an instrument, a dance class, a group. Second myth. It is too late for me. The walking study grew brains in older adults, and the hearing trial helped people in their 70s and 80s. Later than ideal is still worth doing. Third myth. If my parent had it, I am doomed. Genes load the gun, but for the common late life form, your daily life does a lot of the aiming, and nearly half of the risk sits in factors you can touch. And one more. Supplements marketed to prevent dementia are mostly selling you hope in a bottle. The evidence for a pill is thin. The evidence for greens, walking, and connection is not. Save your money. So here is your plan. Starting this week, write these down. 1. Put leafy greens and a handful of berries into your day, most days. 2. Walk briskly for about 30 minutes, most days of the week. 3. Brush, floss, and book the dentist you have been putting off. 4. Say yes to one social thing you were about to skip, and keep saying yes. 5. Get your blood sugar and blood pressure checked, and treat them if they are high. And the bonus: if sounds have gotten muffled, get a hearing test. 6 small moves, each one draining a little water off that slow fire. Now the honest lines that matter most. Everything here is about lowering risk and building reserve. It is prevention, not treatment, and it is not a guarantee. Good, careful people still develop dementia, and if that touches your family, none of it is a failure of willpower. This video is education, not a diagnosis, and it does not replace your own doctor, who knows your history, your medications, and your numbers. And there is a line between the slow, quiet risk we talked about today and something that needs help right now. The changes of dementia unfold over months and years. So if you or someone you love becomes suddenly confused over hours or a few days, cannot recognize familiar people, slurs their speech, or has a sharp break in memory or behavior, that is not slow aging. That is a reason to call a doctor or get to an emergency room the same day, because sudden confusion can be an infection, a stroke, a medication problem, or something else that is treatable when caught fast. Bring this list to your next checkup. Ask about your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your hearing, your mood. Let a doctor who knows you help you turn these 6 ideas into your plan, not the internet's. Here is the thread I want to leave you holding. We spent today on the brain, but 3 of these 6 levers, the blood flow, the blood sugar, and the blood pressure, are really about one hidden thing running underneath all of it: the state of your blood vessels. And there is a pair of minerals that sit right at the center of your heart's rhythm and your circulation, ones that a large share of adults over 40 quietly run low on, where the shortage can show up first as a skipped or fluttering beat that people brush off as nerves. In my next video, I am going to show you which minerals keep your heartbeat steady and how to tell when yours are running down. Subscribe so it finds you. Whether you are 45 or 75, You are never too early and never too late to protect the one organ you can never replace. The version of you 10 years from now is watching what you do this week. I am Dr. Hale. Take care of yourself.